Western Australia, a land of sweeping deserts, historic towns, and haunted graves. But behind the beauty lies a chilling truth. Some spirits never rest. Here are the top 10 most haunted cemeteries in Western Australia, places where whispers echo in the dark, shadows move on their own, and the dead refuse to stay buried. 1. Fremantle Cemetery, Fremantle. They say if you walk alone through Fremantle Cemetery just past midnight, you might hear her. Her name was Martha Rendell, once called the wicked stepmother of Western Australia. In 1909, she was convicted of killing her stepchildren in a most horrifying way by slowly poisoning them with hydrochloric acid, masked as medicine. The public was furious. She was hanged at Fremantle Prison in 1909, and her grave lies within these very grounds. But that was only the beginning. Over the years, visitors to the cemetery have reported strange, cold gusts of air on windless nights. A woman in old-fashioned clothing has been seen wandering the pathways, crying softly. Some say she disappears the moment you call out. Others swear they heard children's voices whispering from behind the tombstones, even when the cemetery is completely empty. A team of paranormal investigators once caught an unexplained female sobbing on audio. The cemetery staff refused to enter certain areas after dark, but the most chilling report? One man claims he saw a woman standing motionless by Martha's grave, staring straight ahead. When he turned away for just a second, she was gone. Yet the scent of antiseptic still lingered in the air. Coincidence? Or a restless soul forever seeking redemption? Whatever you believe, if you do choose to visit Fremantle Cemetery at night, just don't go alone. 2. East Perth Cemeteries, Perth. Nestled in the shadow of modern skyscrapers lies East Perth Cemeteries, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. It began in the 1800s when early settlers, convicts, and victims of disease were laid to rest here. Over 10,000 bodies, many in unmarked graves, were buried in haste without ceremony. Some say not all of them were truly dead when the soil closed over them. Visitors speak of a heavy silence that blankets the cemetery, broken only by whispers that come from nowhere. A security guard once quit after witnessing a figure in black gliding silently between gravestones, only to vanish before his eyes. The surveillance footage that night? Corrupted. Completely unreadable. Local historians tell of a young nurse who died during a typhoid outbreak. Her spirit, dressed in a long white apron, is often seen tending to invisible patients, only to disappear when approached. One paranormal investigator described feeling a freezing hand grip her shoulder near the old Anglican section despite being completely alone. But what truly unnerves even the bravest ghost hunters is the sensation of being followed. Turn around and there's nothing. But take one step forward and you'll swear footsteps echo behind you. In East Perth cemeteries, the dead may be silent, but they are never still. 3. Tudier Cemetery, Tudier. On the outskirts of the quiet country town of Tudier lies a cemetery forgotten by time, but not by the dead. Locals speak in hushed tones about the old Tudier convict depot, where prisoners once labored in brutal conditions during the 1850s. Many died in chains and were buried without names. Only numbers right here in the very soil of Tudier Cemetery. It is said that their spirits never left. One man, visiting a relative's grave late in the evening, reported hearing the unmistakable sound of iron dragging on stone, like shackles scraping against the ground. He turned around, heart racing, but saw nothing. Only later, reviewing photos from that visit, did he notice a shadowy figure standing near a headstone, where no one had been. Some nights, a thick fog rolls in over the cemetery, even when the surrounding fields remain clear. Locals call it asterisk, the mist of the condemned. It's during these moments that strange things happen. Voices whisper in thick accents, chains rattle in the distance, and visitors feel a sudden, crushing weight on their chest, like something unseen pressing down. A paranormal team once left in a panic after capturing a low, gravelly voice on their recorder. When slowed down, the voice seemed to say, asterisk, still here. Tudier Cemetery may look like any other resting place by day, but by night it becomes a prison for souls who never truly escaped. 4. Albany Pioneer Cemetery. Albany, perched on a windswept hill overlooking the sea, Albany Pioneer Cemetery holds more than just bones beneath its weathered headstones. It holds sorrow and secrets. This was one of the first burial grounds in Western Australia, where settlers, sailors, and lost souls were laid to rest. Among them, a young deckhand named Thomas Gray, who vanished during a violent storm in 1878. His body was never recovered, only his boots. Found neatly placed on the cliffs nearby, weeks later they held a symbolic funeral. But some say he came back. Fishermen anchored offshore have reported a man standing at the edge of the cemetery at dawn, staring out to sea. When they call to him, he steps forward, then vanishes in a blink. Tourists have heard the crashing of phantom waves, even on calm days. One woman fainted after feeling ice-cold water surge around her ankles, though the ground was completely dry. But the most unsettling tale comes from a local council worker who visited the site at dusk. He claims he saw wet footprints on the gravel path, leading out of an empty grave. They stopped at the gate. Beyond that, nothing. EVP recordings captured near Thomas Gray's memorial picked up a single word repeated 3 times. Asterisk. Home, home. In Albany Pioneer Cemetery, the dead don't always rest beneath the earth. Sometimes they return with the tide. 5. York Cemetery, York. They call her the Lady in White, and in the quiet town of York, her legend is whispered like a prayer or a warning. York Cemetery, one of the oldest in Western Australia, rests beneath ancient trees and time-worn gravestones. It's peaceful by day, but as the sun sets, the atmosphere shifts, cold, still, expectant. According to local lore, she was a young woman from the 1860s, abandoned by her lover on their wedding day. Heartbroken and disgraced, she walked to the cemetery in her bridal gown and never returned. Her body was found hanging from an old gum tree just beyond the cemetery wall. They buried her in an unmarked grave, far from the others, a symbol of shame. But she was not forgotten. Dozens of witnesses over the decades have reported a woman in a white dress gliding silently between the graves, her face pale and hollow, her veil fluttering even when there's no wind. Drivers passing the cemetery at night have seen her standing by the roadside, only to vanish as they approach. In one chilling incident, a photographer captured what appeared to be a translucent figure kneeling at a grave. The metadata confirmed: no double exposure, no tricks. Just her. Some say she searches for her lost lover. Others believe she waits for someone, anyone, to finally mourn her. But one thing is certain: in York Cemetery, love doesn't always die, and neither does grief. 6. Kalgori Cemetery, Kalgori. In the heart of Gold Rush country lies Kalgori Cemetery, a place where dreams of fortune turned into nightmares of death. During the late 1800s, Kalgori was a magnet for miners chasing wealth. But beneath the surface, tunnels collapsed, fires broke out, and lives were lost in darkness. Many of those men, buried hastily and without ceremony, lie beneath the red dust of this cemetery. Some say they never made peace with the earth that swallowed them. One former miner, visiting the grave of an old friend, reported the unmistakable scent of gunpowder, even though no one was around. He said it reminded him of a blast gone wrong, the same kind that took dozens of lives in the super pit. Moments later, he collapsed, claiming he felt the ground breathing under him. Visitors have captured strange thermal anomalies, cold spots shaped like human forms, hovering near certain graves. A paranormal group recorded tapping sounds underground, timed like Morse code. When decoded, it spelled, "*Help me." But perhaps the most disturbing tale comes from a night guard who patrolled the grounds. He saw a hunched man walking between the graves with a lantern, but when he followed, the light disappeared, and in its place, a deep shaft in the ground that hadn't been there before. The next day, it was gone. In Kalgori Cemetery, gold isn't the only thing buried deep. Some souls were left behind in the dark. 7. Greenough Pioneer Cemetery. Greenough. At first glance, Greenough Pioneer Cemetery looks like a peaceful relic of the past, but once the sun goes down, its silence turns eerie, almost too quiet. This small cemetery holds the remains of settlers from the 1800s, many of whom lost their lives during a deadly measles outbreak that swept through the region. Among the buried are countless children, some unnamed, some never properly mourned. Locals believe their spirits still linger, restless and confused. Visitors have reported hearing soft crying and childish giggles drifting between the graves, even when no one else is around. One woman, placing flowers for a family member, felt a sudden tug on her coat, as if a small hand had grasped it from behind. She turned quickly. No one was there, but lying on the ground beside her was a worn, dirt-covered doll that hadn't been there moments before. Paranormal teams investigating the site have captured EVP recordings of faint lullabies and whispers. In one particularly chilling clip, a voice is heard saying "*Mummy, cold, *", followed by a soft sob. Locals avoid the cemetery at dusk, especially near the cluster of small, weathered headstones in the northern corner. They say toys left there by grieving visitors sometimes move on their own or disappear entirely by morning. At Greenough Pioneer Cemetery, time may have moved on, but the children never did. 8. Kew Cemetery, Kew, in the desolate outback town of Kew, where the wind whistles through empty streets and gold rush memories linger in the dust, lies a cemetery steeped in tragedy and something far darker. During the late 1800s, Kew was booming with fortune seekers, but greed, betrayal, and violence festered beneath the promise of gold. Many miners were murdered over claims, their bodies dumped and buried quietly. Some say right here in the Kew Cemetery, without justice or even a name. A prospector once claimed he saw a shadowy figure standing near a grave late at night, wearing a torn slouch hat and holding a rusted pickaxe. When the man approached, the figure turned slowly, revealing hollow eyes and a face half missing. He fled, but later found deep scratch marks on the side of his vehicle, as if something had followed him back. Others have reported the sound of picks striking rock underground long after mining ceased. One night, a camper nearby heard 3 loud knocks at his window. When he looked out, there was no one. Only 3 sets of dusty footprints leading away from the cemetery. Paranormal investigators picked up a chilling voice during a nighttime session. When enhanced, it whispered, "*Buried alive. Still waiting?" At Kew Cemetery, the quest for gold may have ended, but the curse of greed is still very much alive. 9. Old Jingan Cemetery. Jingan. Tucked behind eucalyptus trees on a quiet country road, the old Jingan Cemetery seems almost forgotten, but something there remembers you. Established in the 1850s, this cemetery holds some of the earliest settlers in the region, many of whom died under strange or sudden circumstances. What unsettles locals most isn't the graves, but the grave without a name, a weathered stone marked only with a carved X, no records, no family, no explanation. It's around that grave where the strangest things happen. One evening, a visitor snapping photos noticed something odd in the background. A dark figure crouched behind a headstone. But when she turned around, there was nothing there. Later, her phone froze and deleted every image taken in the cemetery. Locals tell of seeing faint candlelight flickering near the unmarked grave on moonless nights. When approached, the lights vanish, and the air turns ice cold. A hiker once reported seeing names on tombstones change before his eyes, only to return to normal moments later. He said it felt like someone didn't want to be found. EVP recordings have picked up one recurring phrase near the X stone asterisk, "Don't speak my name." Some believe the grave belongs to an outcast, perhaps a criminal, cursed to remain anonymous even in death. Others say, speaking his name is exactly what he's waiting for. At Old Jingan Cemetery, silence is not just eerie, it's survival. 10. Boulder Cemetery, Boulder at the edge of the goldfields. Where the earth is stained with ambition and old secrets, lies Boulder Cemetery, a place where faith once stood strong, and then crumbled. In 1902, a beloved parish priest vanished without warning. Rumors swirled, accusations of theft, betrayal, even murder. Days later, his body was found in the church well. No suspects, no justice. They buried him quietly in Boulder Cemetery, and the town moved on. But he didn't. Decades later, visitors began reporting strange sightings. A man in a black cassock wandering between the graves, clutching a Bible, eyes hollow with sorrow. He never speaks, never blinks. Just stares until you look away, and he's gone. One cemetery worker recalled a chilling moment when the old church bell rang 3 times at exactly midnight, even though the rope had been removed years ago. That same night, a fresh cross appeared on the priest's grave, drawn in ash. Paranormal investigators recorded Gregorian chanting echoing faintly across the grounds, though no source could be found. And a thermal drone captured an icy cold spot in the shape of a kneeling figure. Positioned directly in front of his headstone, the priest was buried in sacred ground. But what if that ground never forgave him? In Boulder Cemetery, redemption may be sought, but not always granted. From lonely cries to ghostly figures, these cemeteries remind us not every grave is silent. So next time you pass by one of these places, look twice. Because in Western Australia, the dead might be closer than you think.